realm. And what was so cool was that I could actually look inside my body too, and I'm watching these little spirit beings just scanning my body, and I'm looking over it, and eventually they were just like, okay, there's nothing to weigh you down, let's go, and right up to the goddess realm. It was awesome. Hello my friends, it's Tom Hatsis, your entheohistorian, and this is Ayahuasca Witchcraft, Night 1, Circe and the Secret of Sacred Forgiveness. So as promised, here's the first of 3 videos detailing the last 3 nights I sat with ayahuasca. I recently came face to face with a harsh truth, that our past wounds can do much to sabotage our present lives, and mostly I'm talking about the past wounds of our inner child. Each one of us is made up of different parts, and one of those parts is an inner child, and not dealing with the wounds of that inner child can certainly lead to some folly in adult life. In this short 3-part, for lack of a better word, series, we are going to go deep into my spirituality, psychology, trials and tribulations, and meet the 3 great goddesses of my pantheon, Circe, Hecate, and Gaia. So that first night saw me face to face with the goddess Circe. She led me down into the marrow of my own pain, and there showed me a truth that was so terrifying, but also at the same time really liberating, that it, for lack of a better way of putting it, cracked my soul open. But before we get started, if you're into this kind of content, please give this video a like and a share, subscribe to the channel, find me on Instagram at tom.hatsis, and check out my Substack, which will be linked below. To heal the inner child is to reclaim the forgotten self. The soft, unguarded part of us that first learned what it meant to feel unloved or unseen or unsafe in some way. In Jungian psychology, this child resides within the shadow, the unconscious realm where we bury all that is too painful or shameful or inconvenient to confront. But what we reject does not disappear. It merely rots inside of us while never actually falling apart and dissipating. Carl Jung taught that we become enlightened by making the darkness conscious. The inner child is often that first fragment of light we cast away when the world proved too harsh. Maybe our cries were being ignored, maybe we had a need that was not being met. I mean, maybe we had soiled our diapers and we couldn't do anything about it and no one else was doing anything about it. To leave these wounds unhealed is to live half awake, ruled by invisible scripts that we don't even remember writing, if we were ever cognizant that we were writing them at all. Shadow work invites us to meet this lost child, not to fix the lost child, but to witness them. In doing so, we begin to understand our own anger and addictions and anxieties and relational patterns, not so much as flaws, but as protectors of old wounds. Healing the inner child softens those defenses and restores our capacity for joy, spontaneity, and emotional intimacy. Without this healing, we risk living from reaction rather than response, projecting our pain onto others, repeating inherited trauma, or searching endlessly for others to validate us. But when we turn inward with compassion, we find that the very parts we tried to exile are keys to our wholeness. To heal the inner child is to end the war all of us have raging inside of us. It is to say, you are no longer alone, I see you. From this place of integration, we no longer fear our shadow, we dance with it. And in that sacred embrace, we become not just healed, but complete. So, Ayahuasca Night 1 with Circe. Let's see. First thing to say is that the scientific experiment I did with sticking strictly to the dieta proved to be quite viable. As I outlined in my Circe and the Ayahuasca Dieta video, I wanted to see if sticking to the dieta more strictly would enable me to access the goddess realm, or probably most people would call it the spiritual realm or the spirit realm. I call it the goddess realm. Anyway, we're talking about the same place. I wanted to see if sticking to the Dieta would allow me to access the goddess realm more easily than normally if I don't stick to the Dieta strictly. And wow, does it ever. So to quickly recap, I believe in the existence of at least 3 non-material realities. The first is hyperspace, which is accessible through DMT. The second is the goddess or spiritual realm, which is accessible through ayahuasca or psilocybin mushrooms. And the third is the god realm, which is accessible through 5-MeO DMT. Hyperspace is populated by psychic entities, so-called like the elf clowns and aliens and reptilians and whatnot. The goddess or spiritual realm is populated by spiritual beings, and the non-dual god realm is just, essentially all that is. Since, at least for me, achieving the god realm is not possible with ayahuasca, the goal is always to access the goddess realm. This time the experience began with ghastly and demonic forms in hyperspace, but I was able to pull myself out of that place because I stuck with the Dieta. Again, please see my video on Circe and the Ayahuasca Dieta for more clarification. Now, just to be clear, I always have to go through hyperspace at least a little bit, but it was real fast this time. And what was awesome was, so this time, I saw these, for lack of a better term, these like light or spirit beings that were just sort of scanning over my body, trying to see if there was anything inside me that would weigh me down and keep me in hyperspace for longer instead of accessing the goddess realm. And what was so cool was that I could actually look inside my body too, and I'm watching these little spirit beings just scanning my body, and I'm looking over it, and eventually they were just like, okay, there's nothing to weigh you down, let's go. And right up to the goddess realm. It was awesome. So I was immediately lifted out of hyperspace and into the jeweled atrium, which is more or less like the waiting room before entering the goddess realm, for lack of a better way of putting it. I know this probably sounds crazy to some of you, but very quickly the jewels, the ruby reds, the emerald greens, the sapphire blues began to blur and liquefy, and soon brought me right before her. Circe, goddess of alchemy and evolution. Then things got fun and a little weird. We started diving back and forth between hyperspace and the goddess realm. Like the goddess realm's up here and hyperspace is down here. And so we were kind of just going like this, up and down. It was really cool. It was my first time ever being in hyperspace with a spiritual being. And this time it was with a goddess, no less. It was awesome. Now, fun as it was, there was some serious work that I did have to take care of. And this one is kind of personal, but we're here for truth, right? So I asked how to transmute the wounded heart of my inner child into something more useful as an adult. To do so, I asked each of the goddesses on each night for their secret sacred word that will guide me through my intention. Circe told me that night that the secret sacred word was forgiveness. And this forgiveness needed to be a two-way street. I need to be able to forgive people when they are terrible to not only myself, but also others. And I need to be able to forgive myself when I slip up and return the favor in kind. For I cannot truly transmute contempt into forgiveness of others when they mess up if I can't transmute contempt into forgiveness in myself when I mess up. And yes, something about that does sound a little self-centered, but I suppose that's what we mean when we say that we are all but a mirror for each other. The thing is, I was very surprised by this revelation from Circe, especially about forgiving myself. I tend to hang on to regret and guilt like a lot. Like I stranglehold on regret and guilt anytime I do something wrong. And I just let it eat me alive. But I ruminated on it and wrote down some things about forgiveness to help me integrate that secret sacred word, which I'd like to share with you all. Forgiveness is not a denial that somebody wronged you. It is not weakness either, nor is it the laying down or the ignoring of your own personal boundaries. Forgiveness is high transmutation. A soul-deep alchemy that transforms the poison of pain into the nectar of liberation. So no wonder it was Circe's sacred word. I'd never thought of forgiveness as a form of alchemy, but it really makes a lot of sense. It is a quiet revolution of the heart, a soft undoing of the knots that bind both the person who is wounded and the person who is doing the wounding. The modern world, so fluent in the language of justice and vengeance, often forgets the wisdom of grace. Yet, grace survives, sometimes in myth, sometimes in scripture, sometimes in prayers and stories set around a fire. We can remember what we have forgotten, that to forgive is to be something more than what you were before you were harmed. It is this unbelievable growing process. Our wounds are portals into humbleness, revealing the limits of control we have over our own lives, and invites us to feel the full range of our own vulnerability. It is, in fact, an act of rebellion against the apathy of pain. Forgiving others is very, very difficult. More still, forgiving ourselves is like a Herculean task. We are typically the harshest critics of our own actions. We replay our errors, at least I do. I replay my mistakes over and over and over in my head like a soundtrack to my life. I beat myself with regret, almost as if the suffering will absolve what happened. Like, I will suffer too, so now everything is fine. And it's like, no, it's not. Now there's just more people suffering. And there is another cosmic irony, which is this. We cannot fully give that which we don't believe we deserve. A heart unforgiven by itself will struggle to extend mercy outward. The grace we withhold from our own shadow becomes the standard by which we measure others. To forgive oneself is to look into the mirror with open eyes and say, I am still learning, I am still becoming something more. Forgiveness of the self is not indulgence, as I used to erroneously believe. It is responsibility. It says, I own my actions and still I choose growth. I choose not to be defined by the worst things that I've ever done. It is only through owning our own actions that we can truly allow others to own theirs. Forgiveness is active, it's not passive. It allows us to re-enter flow state. Now, I want to be clear about this. I'm not here to be all love and light. I'm not a hippie, I'm a witch. Forgiveness does not mean submission. There are times when the wound is too fresh, when accountability has not been met, and when the abuser shows absolutely no remorse. Forgiveness then becomes not a moral duty, but a possibility waiting in the wings. It should not be coerced. Like, don't ever forgive because you feel coerced to do so, because that's not real forgiveness. To forgive prematurely can be another form of betrayal, and that betrayal is to the self. Now, sometimes the highest form of forgiveness can be to just wait. Time ripens us, truth clarifies us, healing comes in spirals and webs, not in straight lines. Forgiving does not necessarily have to mean reunion. It does not have to mean forgetting either. It does not even have to mean reconciliation. It means liberation, freedom. Freedom sometimes means kind of walking alone for a little while. So let's try a magical experiment. Close your eyes. Picture someone who hurt you. See them as a child, like a helpless, confused, scared little child. Now picture yourself as a child, your best kid self, right? Wide-eyed, happy, not aggressive at all. Meet that other kid that's hurt and alone and afraid. Meet that kid with your kid, that inner child with your inner child. What do you think they would say to each other? What might they understand about each other if not conditioned by fear and pride and ego? That is the gateway. That is the soft doorway through which forgiveness enters. Through remembering our shared desire for love. We all want to be loved and we all want to be forgiven. So just sort of, I'm trying to keep that at the forefront of my mind, and I hope others will do the same. So I wrote this little mantra for myself. Feel free to use it as is, modify it, or ignore it altogether. I'm going to forgive because I am tired of carrying the past. I'm going to forgive because we both deserve peace. I'm going to forgive because life is too precious to be lived in chains. I'm going to forgive because my heart longs to sing again. Because in those moments with Circe, in a space of total forgiveness, when the burden lifted, even though it happened quickly, I still felt the levity in my heart. That hush, the quieting of the rage in my soul for those who have hurt me. The music of showing grace. That holy whisper that says, I forgive you, and now we are free. So that was what Circe taught me that first night with ayahuasca. If you're interested in where the story is going, I'll have 2 more videos forthcoming about night 2 with Hecate and night 3 with Gaia. And until we meet again, thanks for stopping by. I'm Tom Hatsis, your entheohistorian, reminding you that you free your mind by forgiving others. Peace.